The new trader in Arc Raiders seems good. He offers extra stash space and even special vault storage that lets you store up to 5 items that will go with you on your next expedition. But there's a big catch. If you go and grind all the Arc parts needed, he's going to scam you. And you're going to come into some big issues too. So let's talk about those issues and why it's maybe not the best to buy anything just yet, and also the best farming methods for getting all those Arc parts for when it is time to trade with him. Alright, so let's talk about the problem with this new trader. I farmed all of these new Arc parts, and it's still not enough to buy the Tempest blueprint. Not only that, I need about 5 times this much to unlock all of the Expedition Vault spaces. Yeah, that's a lot of Arc materials. But it's not all bad news, because the developers specifically said for the first week, a single stash expansion and 5 Expedition Vault spaces will be available to gather initial feedback and give us a chance to adjust prices before adding more space. So it's best not to buy anything yet, because it's likely the price will drop next week after the devs see the community's feedback on the prices this week. There's also another issue that needs to be fixed. To upgrade one stash space, you need to put in all Arc parts in one trade. You can't commit them slowly over time like you can with projects. So that means to unlock the final vault slot, which requires 1 million in value, you need to free up 91 stash spaces to fit enough queen cores. Even the most stash efficient option, the vaporizer core, would still need you to get 56 stacks of these cores to purchase it from the trader. Yeah, that's all a little much, to be honest. I'm sure the devs will see feedback this week and lower the prices, and I'm sure they'll work on a feature that lets us commit Arc parts bit by bit instead of us forcing it to do all in one trade. But right now, that's not available. So all we can do right now is first unlock the extra stash space and then work on saving up Arc parts for when the trader is offering cheaper prices. So with all of that in mind, what is the best method to farm Arc parts right now? Well, I tested all of the different options in game to try and figure out what is the best opportunity. Bearing in mind, there's going to be some variance. Firstly, there's going to be other raiders getting involved who may try to compete for the same loot and may even steal things straight from under you. You need to be quick and able to secure kills on Arc and grab the loot before other people do. It's all a bit of a mess right now as everyone's scrambling to get their hands on every last piece of Arc material out there. Yeah, the Raiders aren't surviving anymore. It's the Arc that are struggling to survive. It is crazy on topside right now. So first I tried Locked Gate. I just shot all the Rocketeers and Vaporizers and the Bastion and Bombardier that spawns there. There's a decent amount of Arc that spawns in Locked Gate, so it turned out that it was about 84,000 in value per hour. The risk is pretty low risk, to be honest. There's not too much Arc threat that you really have to worry too much about potentially dying to a huge wave of attacks. And a lot of players are busy looting in this mode, so it does give you some freedom to go and kill these Arc. Hidden Bunker is another good option, but it's hardly in rotation, so I couldn't really test that one out, but I'm sure that would work out quite well. I also tried Close Scrutiny on Dam, Spaceport, and Buried City. I found that on Dam, it was pretty bad. I got about 50,000 in value per hour. I just couldn't really find that many vaporizers, to be honest. That would all change if people were looting the assessors, and I guess you could also breach them yourselves to get more spawns coming in, but I felt that the cover wasn't really there, and there wasn't as much safe opportunity. On Spaceport, I got around 90,000 per hour, with a 20-minute run getting me about 30,000 in value from both Vaporizers and Rocketeers. You can also loot the assessors themselves to get the matrices. They will count for the trader. Just bear in mind they only stack to 1, so the overall value per stack is pretty low. But yeah, it was about 90,000 per hour in profit. For Buried City, it was about the same, actually. I got about 30,000 in a 20-minute run, and you're going to get close to about 90,000 per hour if you were to do Close Scrutiny Buried City. With all of the Close Scrutiny events, it's a very contested thing. Like, everyone's going to this to kill Arc and loot Arc. So it's a lot of competition. You're going to be fighting over the same Arc, and a lot of times you may kill a Vaporizer and not get the chance to get your hands on it because everyone's scrambling to get the loot. So bring a snap hook so you can snap to wherever the Vaporizer may end up falling. Try to be as quick as you can, and also be respectful of other players. If someone else puts a lot of damage into a Vaporizer, I don't think it's really that fair for you to go and rush ahead and try and steal the loot from him. I also tried just standard old Riven Tides, because there's quite a lot of Arc there. As soon as you start a Riven Tides match, even on a day raid, you've got a Bastion, a Bombardier, a Vaporizer, and a Rocketeer that all spawn in pretty close proximity. There's a lot of cover to play around, so you can fight each of these individually pretty easily. What I found was the best thing to do was to start by fighting whatever was closest to me and then work my way through all of the Bombardier, Bastion, Rocketeer, and Vaporizer spawns. The whole thing would take about 15 minutes with a Jupiter, and then you could just leave near in one of the nearby extracts and just go back again and rinse and repeat. With this strategy, you're getting about 120,000 in value per hour, and maybe even a bit more if you get lucky with the Bastion spawns. I got only 3 Bastion cores from one of my Bastions, and I still ended up leaving with 30k in value within a 15-minute run. I tried to stay in one raid to fight the turbine afterwards, and that dropped my value down a little bit per hour to about 90k per hour because the turbine does take a little bit longer to kill, and each turbine is only going to drop 3 turbine compressors at a maximum, so it didn't really feel that efficient to go and kill the turbines. It was better for me to just leave the match once the main big arc are killed and come back again to farm them, and also a lot safer. Running around with a lot of arc parts in your inventory does get a little bit risky. Next, I tried the Queen. The Queen is the safest of the Queen and Matriarch to fight. Yes, there's less big arc going around and less loot to get your hands on, but if you go and set up in a specific spot, for example, the checkpoint area on Blue Gate or the actual harvester itself on Dam, and play smart and methodically, you can take in a Bettina or an Equalizer, shred off the leg yourself and loot it, and honestly, within about 15 minutes, you're going to leave with a few Queen cores on average. So a quick 15-minute run is going to net you about 33,000 or around 100,000 per hour in profit. Now, if you were to stay and fight the Queen and you were skilled enough to do so and grab as much loot as you can, you may get even more profit. For example, I had one run where everybody left because they ran out of ammo and I stayed till the very end. I ended up walking away with 6 Queen cores and a Vaporizer core as well in just 30 minutes. And there's an even better way to do it potentially if you're a really skilled looter and Queen fighter. You'd want to bring an Equalizer and position yourself in a position to be able to get in and out quickly. You'll be able to equalize the legs, and as soon as they drop down, you'll need to be underneath the legs to grab the loot and loot it before somebody else jumps in to try and steal it. It requires a lot of skill, precision, and practice, but I found that with this strategy, I was actually able to make about 180,000 value an hour. For me personally, this was the most profitable. It's kind of easy to predict how the Queen will play out, and whilst you do have to deal with the occasional rat and other people trying to steal your loot and fight for the Queen as well, with some practice, you can target Queen legs, you can knock them off yourself and grab the loot for yourself, and you leave with quite a lot of good Queen cores. To me, this personally felt like the best option, but every other option out there will depend on your own experience and skill, and you may find you get more value per hour doing something else, but for me, this one was really good. The Matriarch had some pretty similar value ranges for me. I had some really good runs and some really bad runs because with the Matriarch, there's a lot more risk, there's a lot more chaos, there's a lot more variables with all of the other arc that spawns in, and whilst that does mean more loot to grab, it also means more opportunities to die. If you can get the hang of things, then you may end up with about 90 to 150,000 an hour in arc parts profit. That's what I managed to get myself, but I did also get knocked down a couple times, and if it wasn't for the survivor augment and other fellow raiders having defibs, I would have lost a lot of time and got out with nothing. So bear in mind, the Matriarch is riskier by a long shot, and whilst it can potentially have more value, sometimes it can be difficult to get close enough to the Matriarch with all of the other arc flying around, so you won't be able to get in and out and grab those Matriarch cores like you can with the Queen. Definitely more profit, but way harder to deal with. And then we have Husk Graveyard or Electromagnetic Storms, where you go and farm the Rocketeer husks. These can actually drop Rocketeer drivers, so you can just go around and loot them and pick up Rocketeer drivers without dealing with fighting any arc. So there's no risk involved. And whilst you're there, you could loot couriers as well and potentially get more arc parts like turbines and vaporizer regulators. I did 2 10-minute runs, and I have to say, if you choose a map like Dam and just as soon as you spawn in, loot one side of the map and then leave and repeat, you're not going to come into contact with too many other players doing the same thing because, you know, the spawns are pretty spread out. You're always going to be able to get some Rocketeer husks every match before the other players get to it as well. Before making this video, there was still a little bit of competition there already though, so keep that in mind. But with a no-risk method, bringing in around 54,000 profit an hour is pretty good. That was more than I was making on Damn Close Scrutiny with zero risk involved pretty much. So that's all the different ways you can potentially make profit for the new trader. I personally really enjoy the Queen, but there's many different opportunities and you may find yourself having better luck in other areas. Let me know what you found the best results with, and I'll see you all in the comments. Cheerio.